welcome to our celebration of Poetry Month. And I would like to share with you a poem from one of my favorite children's book poets, none other than Dr. Seuss. Now, the poem I'm going to share with you appears in his book, Sneetches and Other Stories. And the name of this story, and this little bit of poetry, is Too Many Daves. Now, I chose this poem because my name happens to be Dave. And as far as I'm concerned, you can never have too many Daves. But here we go. Too Many Daves by Dr. Seuss. Did I ever tell you that Mrs. McCabe had 23 sons, and she named them all Dave? Well, she did, and that wasn't a smart thing to do. You see, when she wants one and calls out, "Yoo-hoo! Come into the house, Dave!" she doesn't get one. All 23 Daves of hers come on the run. That makes things quite difficult at the McCabe's, as you can imagine, with so many Daves. And often she wishes that when they were born, she had named one of them Bodkin Van Horn, and one of them Hoo-Foos, and one of them Sim, and one of them Hotshot, and one Sonny Jim, and one of them Shadrach, and one of them Blinky, and one of them Stuffy, and one of them Stinky, and one of them Put-Put, another one Moonface, another one Marvin O'Gravel Balloonface, and one of them Ziggy, and one Soggy Muff, one Buffalo Bill, and one Biffalo Buff, and one of them Sneepy, and one Weepy Weed, and one Paris Gratters, and one Harris Tweed, and one of them Sir Michael Carmichael Zut, and one of them Oliver Bolivar Butt, and one of them Zanzibar Buck McFate. But she didn't do that, and now it's too late. Too Many Daves by Dr. Seuss. I have been a librarian here at the Fall River Public Library for a very long time, and one of the books on poetry that never ceases to fly off the shelf is this book right here, Where the Sidewalk Ends, by Shel Silverstein, as well as his companion books, A Light in the Attic and Falling Up. He seems to be one of children's most favorite poets. And it always interests me that I see a lot of people who are grown up coming back to the library who rush to these books to relive these wonderful poems and their amazing illustrations time and time again. And this is one of my favorite poems from Where the Sidewalk Ends, called Peanut Butter Sandwich. I'll tell you the tale of a silly young king who played with the world on the end of a string, for he only loved one single thing, and that was a peanut butter sandwich. His scepters and his royal gowns, his regal throne and his golden crowns were brown and sticky from the mounds and drippings of each peanut butter sandwich. His subjects were all silly fools, for he had passed a royal rule that all they can learn to make in school was a peanut butter sandwich. He would not eat his sovereign steak. He scorned his soup and his kingly cake, and one day told the cook to make an extra sticky peanut butter sandwich. And then, all at once, he took a bite and started chewing with delight, but found that his mouth was stuck quite tight from that last bite of peanut butter sandwich. His brother pulled, his sister pried, the wizard pushed, his mother cried, "My son's committed suicide from that last bite of peanut butter sandwich." Well, the dentist came, and the royal doc, the royal plumber, he banged and knocked, but still those jaws stayed tightly locked. Oh, darn that sticky peanut butter sandwich. The carpenter, he tried with pliers. The telephone man tried with wires. The firemen, they tried with fire, but couldn't melt through that peanut butter sandwich. Why, with ropes and pulleys, drills and coil, with steam and lubricating oil, for 20 long years of tears and toil, they fought that awful peanut butter sandwich. Then one day, all his royal subjects came, and they hooked his jaws with grappling chains, and they pulled both ways with might and main against that stubborn peanut butter sandwich. Each man and woman, girl and boy put down their plows and their pots and their toys, and they pulled until crack. Oh, joy! They broke right through that peanut butter sandwich. A puff of dust, a screech, a squeak. The king's jaws opened with a creak. And then, in a voice so faint and weak, the first words that they heard him speak were, "How about another peanut butter sandwich?" And that's Peanut Butter Sandwich by Shel Silverstein.
Hi, I'm Kyla Cabral from the Fall River Public Library. Today I'm reading some poems by Jack Prelutsky from the book, Be Glad Your Nose is on Your Face. I'd like to start with this poem called There Was a Little Poet. There was a little poet with a little silver pen who liked to write a little every now and then. He took a little journey to a little mountain stream, and there he took a little nap and dreamed a little dream. He dreamed of little dragons, and he dreamed of little kings. He dreamed of little elephants with little golden wings. He woke a little later, and he thought a little while, then wrote a book of little rhymes, and smiled a little smile. The next poem is The Wigglin', Wrigglin', Jigglin' Juggler. The wigglin', wrigglin', jigglin' juggler joggles and juggles a jangle of things, hats and platters that clitter and clatter, and canes and chains and rattles and rings. Blocks and balls of various sizes fly from the jigglin' juggler's hands. They twist and they twirl, they wobble and whirl. He calmly catches them where he stands. Then the jugglin' delicate eggs by the dozen, they certainly splatter if they ever fall. With a mystical twist of his wrigglin' wrist, the jigglin' juggler catches them all. The wigglin', wrigglin', jigglin' juggler joggles and juggles as nobody can. He makes all things take magical wings. Hooray for the jigglin' juggler man. The next one I'd like to read is called The Clocktopus. Emerging from the salty sea, a wondrous beast appears. It clearly is a clocktopus. We marvel as it nears. It moves with slow precision, at a never-changing pace, its tentacles in tempo, with a clock upon its face. While undulating east to west across the swirling sand, it ticks away the minutes, and it has a second hand. We watch it for an hour, and it never goes astray. There's nothing like a clocktopus to tell the time of day.
Welcome to poetry. Bem-vindos à poesia. My name is Odete Amarelo, and I have been in Fall River for many decades. I came from St. Michael Azores, and I am an educator, a teacher, a storyteller, a lover of literacy and books and stories and poems. And today I am going to share with you some poems from a local, popular author, writer, poet. His name is João Teixeira de Medeiros. And João Teixeira de Medeiros was born in 1901. And his parents came much prior from 1901. Just visualize his parents coming from Northwest St. Michael Azores, okay, with dreams. And when his son was born, João, they had big dreams for him. He attended the American mainstream schools here in Fall River, but his parents decided to go back when he was 9 years old. Well, guess what? He had to attend the Portuguese schools in Northwest. And he started writing poetry in Portuguese very soon. As a matter of fact, in Northwest, there is a beautiful mosaic plaque in his name with one of his poems. But João Teixeira de Medeiros decided to come back to Fall River because, after all, that was his home. He was 29 years old when he returned. And he worked just like many immigrants worked in factories around and continued writing poetry. Well, he was a man of a simple conversation, but whom everybody liked. His friends called him Teixeirinha. It's such a precious word of endearment, Teixeirinha. He had a special gift of saying a lot in a few words. I still have his soft voice in my ears. He himself was a poem. Here in Fall River at the Heritage Park, there is a monument to Teixeirinha. It's a quiet corner, a place where you can sit on a bench, look at his face, and read his poetry. That it is on traditional blue and white tiles in both languages, in English and Portuguese. Enjoy it. So now I would like to share with you some poems of João Teixeira de Medeiros. Oh, just between us, Teixeirinha. Let's all say it, Teixeirinha, because it's such a lovely, lovely affection name. The first poem, it will be in Portuguese. Passado, presente e futuro. Ah, passa o tempo eternamente, mas passa tão apressado que o futuro é já presente e o presente é já passado. Neste vai e vem inseguro, vai vivendo toda a gente à espera do futuro para morrer no presente. He wrote in rhyme. His poetry, it's just so profound and so delicious to read. Sou, não sou moço nem criança, já vou tocando no fim. Sou cinza de uma esperança que morreu dentro de mim. Well, now it is the attempt to do the English version. The past, the present, and future. The forever in its flow is a current rushing fast, such that the future is now, and now already the past. In its uncertain come and go, does the world's living lie, for the future is all aglow, only in the present to die. Neither boy or child am I, now narrowing in on my breath, but ashes of a hopeful death that within me did die. And this poem is at a heritage park, as I said, in both languages. Please, when you go there, stop and read it, and think of the poem, the poet, Teixeirinha. Well, Teixeirinha was also a writer that could be a bit sarcastic. And here goes one. Uma casa portuguesa is definitely questioning. Não gabes nunca o viver da malograda pobreza. Não é justo apenas ter caldo magro na mesa. Uma porta, uma janela, a casa que não seduz. Eu prefiro sempre aquela onde há mais ar e mais luz. 4 paredes caiadas alegram bem quem as tem. Quando dentro das moradas não há fome para ninguém. Um cheirinho a alecrim traz no lar um bom odor. Se a pobreza tem jardim onde criar uma flor. Comemos do mesmo prato. Com amor e brejeiro, não seria mais sensato mais um prato e mais dinheiro? He questions again at the end. So let's look for the English version. So it is a Portuguese house. Never brag about living of unsuccessful poverty. It's not fair just to have a lean broth on the table. A door and a window? And a house that doesn't seduce. I always prefer the one where there is more air and more light. 4 whitewashed walls. They bring joy to those who have them. When inside the homes, there is no hunger for anyone. A smell of rosemary brings a good smell to the home. If poverty has a garden where a flower could grow, we eat from the same plate. How love is boring. Won't it be wiser? 1 more plate and more money? That's Teixeirinha. Enjoy his poems. We are inviting you to come and enjoy the poetry, the poems. Welcome everybody. Bem-vindos a todos. Obrigada. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emily, and for National Poetry Month, I am reading a selection of poems by Emily Dickinson. My first poem is, I'm Nobody, Who Are You? I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us, but don't tell. They banish us, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog. To tell your name the livelong day to admiring bog. Our next poem is Hope is the Thing with Feathers. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. And our final poem for National Poetry Month is Dear March. Dear March, come in. How glad I am. I hoped for you before. Put your hat down. You must have walked far for how out of breath you are. Dear March, how you are and the rest. Did you leave nature well? Oh, March, come upstairs with me. I have so much to tell. I got your letter and the birds. The maples never knew that you were coming. I declare how red their faces grew. But March, forgive me, and all those hills you left for me to hew. There was no purple suitable. You took it all with you. Who knocks? That April? Lock the door. I will not be pursued. He stayed away a year to call when I am occupied, but trifles look so trivial as soon as you have come. That blame is just as dear as praise, and praise as mere as blame. Thank you so much for joining us for our poetry readings for National Poetry Month. If you enjoyed any of these poems, feel free to come down to the Fall River Public Library to check out our poetry collection.